would you say to people about they're in that role of whatever age their kids are? Maybe they're little, maybe they're approaching teenagers. What would you tell them about faith in raising their kids?
Well, I think it's got to be authentic, and I think that's probably come across so far now is that if you really live it out, then it's the best example you can have. And so I think once they know, hey, what you're all about. I think when we try to fake it and fake it in front of other people, and your kids and your family they'll sniff it out. I mean, that they know, like, and again, it could be, they can see other things that probably are more important in your life, or at least what you're trying to steer them towards. So, we wrote a book. Corey wrote a book that I helped her with called Strong and Kind, and that was two of the things we wanted our kids to be. We wanted them to be kind, but also strong as well. And so it's that combination, I feel like, because if I think about Jesus, those would be two great words that could describe him as strong and kind.
Absolutely.
And so, and that's the example. And so I think the more we live like Jesus, that's the example that we do. And so what I think is that you'll again, if your mission is like, I try to go to church, I try to be a good person, that's not a great mission. And I think even with our kids, if it's like, well, I just try to watch everything they do, every sports activity, I just try to watch. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but that's not the mission. I mean, that's only plus it's only going to last for a little while.
Right.
Well, what kind of people are they becoming? What are they learning? Are you preparing them when they get dumped into, the big high school? Or you preparing them when they go off and move and get dumped into a college and they're around, other little heathen people who are, desperately trying to destroy their lives and take advantage of them. And so, I think it's a bigger cause and a purpose in what we teach them. And can they answer some of these questions, and do we have the answers as what we give them for why we live the lives we live? And so I think all these go into it. And so these are things that I've, tried to teach my kids, and I'm proud of where they are. And somebody said how they turned out good. Well, they're still turning out though. So like they're still, it's hard to say like, well, we did it. I love a lot of the things I'm seeing, but they're going to have their challenges as well. And so I know they were taught it, as a youngster. And so, but it is, I can tell you as a parent, it's very proud when you do see your kids, living for the gospel and taking their stand on it, and doing all the things they do in the faith, and then they become co-workers in the kingdom of God with you. And so when you learn something from your kids, that's cool too. When you learn something spiritually, as being the one who taught them when they were young. So, and I've fortunately had the chance to do that as well.
And we do get those times. Yeah, I'm thinking my kids, even my grandkids, they'll just say something or tell me something they prayed about, and it does. It just it's encouraging, and it's just so cool to see them develop the stronger relationship or a deeper relationship with the Lord. Share that, because it's really your faith has really shaped your family in so many ways.
Yeah, for sure,
and continues to.
Yeah, for sure.
I was thinking when we have family dinners a lot, and obviously know a lot about that, but a lot of times now my grandsons will bring a girlfriend or something, and so we always hold hands and pray before. And it's just been interesting to watch those young women, because I can tell a lot of them have never done that before.
Yeah.
And yet they always tell my grandsons, that was so neat. They are impressed in the right word, but it hits them somewhere different. That's something they haven't seen. And I think just doing things like that around people is a connection with them and helping them see, hey, this is important to this family. And maybe hopefully they see something in our family that's attractive, and then that leads them just maybe to ask some questions about, who's this Jesus guy that your granddad was praying to,
I think that's a big part of it. I mean, how we live our lives around people, whether or not they see something working or not. That's a huge part of it. Because what you'll find is a lot aren't, and families are are totally messed up, and when they see that happening, and they hopefully will. And sometimes you may, the parents may be kind of beyond at the point, but maybe it's the kids. Maybe the kids are the ones we can, try to do that. And so, like in the chain of my family, like my mom's parents were not really Christians at all, and so you had a brokenness there, and then you had mom who
Mhm.
then stepped up and then became that, uh, and so she redid that. So there's always hope, and that's what I love about Christianity is there's always hope, and you can always change, and I think if someone's listening and they're like, well, yeah, I think I've screwed it all up. I haven't lived the type of life that I want to live. There's always hope that that can change, and so you can change. You can
Absolutely.
change as a person, and um, it's interesting to see even like with our family through even our careers, like Doug Dynasty started when I was 40, and for my parents, they were in their mid 60s, so they
Yeah.
had thought pretty much they had lived their life and quasi retired, and then you have this whole new thing happen and these whole new platforms. I mean, Dad's written several books, and all this stuff has happened, and they're post 65, which is incredible. So,
Yeah, that
um,
is.
so yeah, you keep learning and keep changing, and so I think sometimes we feel like we blew it or we wasted time or we didn't quite raise our kids like we wanted to. And now, God, if I knew what I knew now, and, but I think that these things can be mended and put together and you can change, if you got to change, you got to change.
Yeah, and I think as long as God leaves us here, I firmly believe He's got a reason for us here.
Hmm.
And no matter what we've done in the past, like you said, Willie, there's forgiveness, there's new life, there's it's sad when I see somebody that comes into counseling and just feels like they don't have anything to offer, and just helping them see that no, God's got something for you. You're still here, and there's
Yeah.
something you can do for others, for your family, people that have messed up, maybe they divorced or their kids have kind of walked away from them. That there's always help with what God can do.
Yeah. And I think once you change, that can be a great example, and I think
Oh yeah,
kids can see that. And I mean, there's been times in my life where I've corrected the course and they're like, I noticed that. I saw that, and so it tells them that can happen, and that we're always growing, and that we get
yeah,
stronger, and then we get into maturity, and Paul speaks about that, and where you drink milk and then now solid food, and so it's and what I'm reading in the New Testament is a journey, even Peter, denying Christ, and then right at the end of the Gospels, and then Acts chapter 1, Peter is the one actually kind of heading up who's going to replace Judas. And then Peter gets up in Acts chapter 2 to speak to this whole group. And as I'm reading, I'm thinking, was this the guy who just denied knowing Christ? It wasn't that
yeah,
long ago.
yeah.
But yet once he, and then he had a conversation with Jesus about it. And I thought it was cool that Jesus actually sits down with him and he wanted to make sure we're good, because I think Peter
Yeah,
was back on that boat, and I don't think he was going to be active in sharing his faith anymore. I think he probably thought he just blew it and was going to
yeah,
go back to what he knew before, and probably tell the passersby, man, I was there, when all that crazy stuff happened with Jesus. But Jesus was saying, no, 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 I've got a mission for you. Feed my
yeah.
sheep, take care of my sheep, and you're going to go out there and do it. And he did. And so I just thought it was a beautiful ability to change and not be held back by your past. And so I feel like a
I
lot
do
of us
too.
just we get stuck there and we just can't, we're like, well, we've blown it again, and then we become identified as that. And so, and I talk about that in the book, it's in thirds, and the first part is my gospel story, and then the gospel story, and then the response to the gospel, and then my gospel story. And I talk about like I liken it to it's called Gospeller. So this chapter is called Broke Propeller. All my chapter titles rhyme with and when your propeller's broken, you're just kind of floating
Not doing
around
it.
in the water, and you
Yeah.
can't. You need to, because I grew up on a river, so I'd seen a lot of broken propellers. Yeah, when that's gone, so man, once that thing gets fixed, and then you start going again. And I thought Peter was such a great example of that, of somebody who really could have just said, "I blew it. That's it,"
Yeah.
was, in the most embarrassing fashion, because Jesus called him out that it was going to happen. He said no, and it still did. So yeah, we've got to let that grace cover us, and it probably starts with us, and letting ourselves say, hey, I got to take that grace
Absolutely.
and move forward. But I noticed, man, they just took off and went, and there wasn't a lot of, I think nowadays we kind of flounder around for a long time, or, even Saul, once he saw Jesus and was blinded, and, he shows up at the synagogue ready to teach,
Yeah.
I know this, it was so quickly that they were still scared that he was going to hurt them. So,
Yeah.
that's how fast he just got back in it. And so I think it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of time for self-pity. And I think today we get
Everything.
kind of in that, kind of wallow around in our self-pity and wonder when we can ever be effective for the kingdom of God. And I think it can be quicker than what we think.
I do too. I think, if somebody just met what we all have our own story to tell.
Yeah.
And say you haven't studied the Bible as much as you want to study it, or all those kind of things, but God will use where you are, because your story is going to be powerful to somebody.